Life insurance in Seven Fields, Pennsylvania. Placing professional liability insurance for architects, engineers, and environmental consultants is our sole focus. As insurance brokers, we know that getting the best terms for our clients requires that we negotiate with underwriters the premium for each client. To do this effectively, it is critical to understand how insurance underwriters view risk and the factors they use in setting premiums. The video below was written by Lee Janecki, one of our senior brokers. Lee was formerly the lead underwriter for the Travelers AE Professional Liability Insurance Program. As the lead underwriter, it was Lee's responsibility to set rates and establish the risk assessment criteria for quoting premiums. This video describes risk factors underwriters assess and provides insight to design firms on how to complete an insurance application to present a firm in its best light. It also describes the role we play as a broker to negotiate competitive terms. Looking through the eyes of an underwriter, design professionals can gain an edge in obtaining the best possible insurance premiums with the use of a thoughtful application submission. The video below describes the factors underwriters use in developing quotes for professional liability insurance. When an underwriter receives your application, their immediate task is to evaluate your firm's potential loss exposure. The two basic types of loss exposure are frequency and severity. Underwriters use the information on your application to calculate the probability of your firm experiencing claims over the life of the policy, and furthermore, if you have a claim, how much it will potentially cost. However, before even considering the merits of an individual firm, insurance carriers already have defined what type of firm is a good risk for their company based on previous experience. They try to attract as many such firms as they can with various coverage differences and program enhancements, but the primary lure is price. Their objective is to set a price that attracts good risks but still allows for an underwriting profit. This is complicated by the catastrophic nature of professional liability claims in the AE industry. Losses tend to be quite large, with a recent statistic stating that the average indemnity payment for a paid loss is upwards of $350,000. As a result, the many end up paying for the few. Design firms need to make their business look attractive to the insurance company in order to obtain the best possible terms. The first step in this strategy is to identify the different risk factors and then present your firm in the most positive way. While numerous factors determine the risk that your firm poses to an insurance company, for the purpose of this discussion we will focus on the most critical areas. There is not much that you can do to influence an underwriter in this category. You are what you are. But it may be helpful to understand how the insurance company evaluates each discipline when it comes to their exposure to risk. The most common discipline in most insurance companies' books of business is architects. As a result, insurance carriers tend to use their rates for architects as base from which to determine rates for other types of firms. The professional discipline seen as having the lowest exposure to loss and thus paying the lowest rate is electrical engineers. Going back to the basic underwriting question, if an electrical engineer makes an error, the damage and corresponding fix is usually far less than a foundation issue or an insufficient support beam. There are always exceptions, but the claim statistics strongly support this evaluation. Positioned somewhere between electrical engineers and architects sits mechanical engineers, surveyors, and civil engineers, with civil engineers having a rate that most closely resembles that of architects. The location of your practice, or more specifically the location of your projects, does have bearing on the rate that is determined for your firm. Claims statistics show that the probability of a loss on a building in Miami, Florida is much different than a building in Flagstaff, Arizona. There are many theories as to why this is the case, but the statistics clearly show that a higher rate is needed in most major metropolitan areas as opposed to most rural areas. Again, there are exceptions to every rule, but the statistics on this topic are definitive. Rate factors in the area of project types, more so than any other, presents the greatest amount of differentiation amongst the various insurance carriers based on their individual statistics and beliefs. Understanding the sweet spots of the different carriers and matching your firm's characteristics with the best markets is the job of your insurance advisor, your broker. As a design professional, you cannot possibly know all of the different markets and specifically which markets best suit your firm. In general, project types that are seen as the least risky in the eyes of the insurance company are those which tend to have less individuality in the design and have less emotional attachment than other project types. This includes projects such as office buildings, banks, retail, and most commercial projects. Project types that tend to be more of a challenge from a risk perspective are those which are more unique to their individual locations and have a much greater bodily injury exposure than the others. They can also run quite large in scale, which increases the physical damage exposure exponentially. These include schools, jails, industrial plants, bridges, parking garages, and stadiums. Finally, the projects that are considered to be high risk are residential projects, swimming pools, harbors and docks, mines, and amusement parks and zoos. The project type with the highest perceived risk is condominiums. The industry has determined that for every premium dollar received by the carrier for a condominium project, $3.5 goes out. All of these projects either carry a high emotional factor from the end user or have a high inherent catastrophic loss exposure, such as a mine or amusement park. It is not the intent of this video to discourage any design firm from performing services on high-risk projects, but it is prudent to understand the exposures and manage the risk as well as possible. Your firm's internal risk management practices provide the best opportunity for you to differentiate your firm and illustrate to the underwriter why you are worthy of their absolute best rate, the rate that is given to the best-in-class type firm. Throughout the application are questions that on the surface seem benign and unimportant, but they are there to paint a picture of the firm for the underwriter that goes beyond the discipline and project types. These questions include but are not limited to use of written contracts, limitation of liability provisions, insured subconsultants, types of contracts, and house education programs, attendance at risk management seminars, and professional society memberships. Individually and collectively, these categories allow for the underwriter to apply debits and/or credits based on the responses given. In some cases, the difference can be as much as 25%. The unfortunate reality is that far too few firms are properly advised by their insurance representative as to the effect of these questions and thus do not enjoy the premium reductions associated with them. Again, it pays to be with an expert that knows your business in the ever-changing marketplace. The area of risk that is perhaps most quantifiable is loss history. As was mentioned earlier, when a design firm does have a legitimate claim, they tend to be quite expensive. There also is a belief in the underwriting world that past claims are a pretty fair indicator of potential future claims activity. As a result, a firm with claims in their past generally pays a much higher rate than a similar firm with no claims. The industry standard is to look 5 years into a firm's past for claims activity, but it is not uncommon for a carrier to look 10 years back when evaluating a larger firm. The key for any design firm with a claim is to take the time to effectively articulate the circumstances regarding the claim and the lessons learned. In some cases, given the right approach and documentation, a firm along with its broker can convince the carrier that it is an even better risk than a firm with no claims because of the experience and knowledge gained from the unfortunate situation. Underwriters' thorough review of these and other factors gives them a profile from which to develop a specific rate for your insurance. The rate is applied against your professional fees and a premium is determined. The premium is increased as the limits of liability desired increases. Conversely, the premium is decreased as the deductible that is carried increases. Looking through the eyes of an underwriter, design professionals can gain an edge in obtaining the best possible insurance premiums with the use of a thoughtful application submission. However, an application does not speak for itself. As your professional liability insurance broker, we work with you to understand your practice and gather mitigating information on the areas that underwriters perceive as risky. Then we negotiate with underwriters to favorably characterize your firm and prove the mitigating information to encourage the most competitive premium quotes. Integral to this task is our specialized, knowledgeable, and complete focus on the AE industry. We hope this information has been helpful for you to better understand the process for quoting professional liability insurance for design firms. Our staff is available to consult with you about your firm's specific insurance needs at 1-800-597-2612.